for better days to come and carry us like wind in our sails. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us. If we just hold on tight, this vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore. 7 years now on this boat, and we all know where we belong. Just wait. For our home to show on the horizon, soon we'll be there. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us. If we just hold on tight, this vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore. When we can't read the sky, we just sail with the wind that we've got. And when we're drowning in doubt, just keep on believing. We are dreamers of the shore. Show me what it's like to be circling among the clouds. Because without you by my side, I would be stuck here on the ground. You're lighting up the way, I can see the road ahead of me. I won't be stumbling in the dark. Your eyes are shining like the stars. I was down until you saved me, until you set me free. My eyes were closed, now I see clear as day. And I just wanted to say that you can take me high. Feels like I can fly. You can take me high. I can see the sun staring at you when you make that smile. I'm moving closer to you now. I can't get close enough somehow. And I was down until you saved me, until you set me free. My eyes were closed, now I see clear as day. And I just wanted to say that you can take me high. Feels like I can fly. I don't need anybody, I don't need anybody else. No one will ever take me, no one will ever take me away from you. I promise I will hold on to you. I don't know what I'd do without you. Without you. You can take me high. Feels like I can fly. You can take me high. Feels like I can fly. can take me high.
Staying at home, turn off the phone, I will listen to you. You lay in the sheets, you hold on to me like I'm already gone, and whisper your words like secrets written in an old moleskin. Look up above, the sunlight seems like it is gonna break in, and something ain't right. Yeah, something ain't right. Oh, something ain't right. Something ain't right. You straighten my shirt, wearing the skirt that my mother gave to you. I come up behind you and kiss on the side of your neck a few, and turn off the lights. The stars in the sky are turning so clear, and without the words, the feelings unheard can still be just as sincere. But something's not right. Something ain't right. Oh, something ain't right. Something ain't right. Walking the leaves under the trees without any shoes on, and holding my hand to spin you around, and I sing you a song, and taking a breath like taking yourself to the hospital. And I feel okay, almost the same, but I know I'm not healed, and something ain't right. Something ain't right. Oh, something ain't right. Something ain't right.
Hi GracePointe, my name is Andy. I'm honored to share a little bit of my story in GracePointe. A year and a half ago, my husband and I, we decided to move from our home country to Nashville. We came with a lot of dreams, with a lot of expectations, but also with some fears. In that transition period, I decided that I wanted to try to reconnect with my faith, that I wanted to heal the wounds from the past, but I didn't know where to start. So as many of you went online, and I came across GracePointe through a video from Josh, and it really caught my attention. And I said to myself, well, maybe one day. Shortly after, a couple of Sundays went by, and my dog one Sunday morning woke me up really early. And that's the day I decided to attend my first service. I will say that it was a life-changing decision. Not only because I have found a place where I have been able to deconstruct my faith, that I can question with no judgment, that I can be my true self, my true colors, and that means a lot. I have been able to heal my wounds, my trauma from church. But beyond that, the biggest gift for me is being able to be part of this community, find amazing human beings that have turned into my friends and even consider my family. In the last year, we have collected so many nice memories that I'm beyond grateful for GracePointe. I want to take a moment to say thank you for the leaders that built this place. I want to say thank you for our current leaders. I want to say thank you to you, Josh. You have changed my life. Every service, every Sunday, it really blew my mind, as I always tell you. And I'm really excited about the future. And I'm really excited and happy to know that one day, whenever we're blessed to become parents, we have a place where we can bring our kids and tell them welcome home. Welcome to a place that you're loved, that you belong no matter what. And that for me doesn't have a price. And I just want to say thank you all. I'm really honored to be part of this group, being part of this, and I'm really excited about the future because the best is yet to come.
Yes, that's Andy. We love Andy. GracePointe, it's been 20 years. Look at us. Look at us. We're glad to be here. Yeah, come on, stand up. Let's all sing together. This is beautiful. Woo.
You can hold my hand when you need to let go. I can be your mountain when you're feeling valley low. I can be a street light showing you the way home. You can hold my hand when you need to let go. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seed, plant a little happiness, let the roots run deep. If it's love that we give, then it's love that we reap. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seed.
Come on, sing it.
Hey, I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. The want a house
Yeah.
with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Let us take on the world while we're young and able, and bring us back together when the day is done. And bring us back together when the day is done. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Y'all sound amazing. You look great. We're so glad you're here. We want every single person who walks in those doors to know that you're loved. You are celebrated with us. We affirm you. We love you. We're so glad you're with us. God is with us. God is for all of us. God is on our side. Let's sing it together. Maker of eternity, right here and now. Creator of all that we see, with us somehow. I cannot explain such mysteries. Who could ever know what this all means? God of the universe, all around. Oh yeah, come on, sing it. God is with us, God is for us, God is on our side. Let all who are here join the chorus. God is on our side. Everything's gonna be alright. God is on our side. Oh yeah. Giver of every breath, breathing in us. The heartbeat of life itself, waking us up. And I cannot explain such mysteries. Who could ever know what this all means? The visible image of God is our love. Oh, yeah, that's right. Here we go. God is with us, God is for us, God is on our side. Let all who are here join the chorus. God is on our side. Everything's gonna be alright. God is on our side. All of creation is joining the sound. Let liberation explode from the ground. Lift up your voice, make it loud. All right, here we go. Let's sing it. God is with you. God is with me. Oh yeah. God is on our side. Come on, sing that with us. God is with you. God is with you. God is with me. God is with me. God is on. Come on, look around. Find somebody and tell it to them. God is with you. Oh, now God is with me. I believe that God is. One more time. God is with you. God is with me. Oh, yeah. Yeah. God is with us. God is for us. God is on our side. Let all who are here join the chorus. God is on our side. Everything's gonna be alright. God Yeah, that's good. That is so good. Thank y'all so much for being here and singing with us. We've got a room full of people. I see people standing. If there are available chairs, when you come back to your chairs, maybe tighten in so we can fit everybody. But we'd love for you to have a conversation with somebody maybe you haven't met before. Introduce yourself, meet and greet, as we call it. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes, all right? We love y'all. Talk to somebody. Taking our seats. I hate to even interrupt this. We want you to see a video of a dear member of ours, an online community, Miss Carol Brusagar. Let's listen to what she has to say.
Hi, I'm Carol Brusagar. I live in Cypress, California, but I lived in Nashville for 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, and all that time I was an active member of GracePointe Church. Since moving, I've continued to be connected through the online community and specifically the magnificent McMath Care Group. There's so many ways that I value and appreciate and love GracePointe, and I want to try and condense them into a few things. First of all, I value GracePointe for the wonderful friends and friendships that I have made during my time there and still on the online community. Those precious connections and relationships continue despite distance, time passing, and life changes so that people aren't connected in the same ways, but still connected. Secondly, I really appreciate that GracePointe is a community that's ever learning, ever expanding, ever engaging, creating, and reclaiming what it means to be followers of Jesus in these times. I also value and appreciate so much that GracePointe is continually striving to be the beloved community, a community that accepts, embraces, engages, and celebrates each and every person, regardless of who they are or where they are in life's journey. And I appreciate the focus on creating a world where all people flourish. All of those things are actually acts of resistance in this time of repression, going backwards, oppression, dishonesty, and hate. And so today I celebrate with you the legacy of GracePointe, and as it went through struggle and recreation and persistence through these years. And I also celebrate with you the future of GracePointe. May it continue to be a beacon of love and life in the world.
Welcome. Yay. Good morning. It's still morning. I'm Tiffany, pronouns she, they. I am our director of our kids and our youth and our college and the things, and I am so excited to be with you. And our first thing we're going to do this morning, actually the only thing you're going to see me do in general, is our kids moment. So if you consider yourself a kid, I am going to put a boundary on this, okay? Of like 3rd, 4th grade and under. We have awesome cushions for you on the floor. If you will come up here, we have some awesome volunteers. And if an adult, you need to come with them, you can. If you're online, this is a time for you to get your kids and get a little bit closer. We have other friends in the room. Do they want to join us? You can come on this way. There you go. Yeah, navigate all of that. Great job. Whew, that was magical. Look, see, bravery. I'm so proud of y'all. It's like a what? It was a hot second. You're right. Okay, so we're going to get started. Winnie, will you join us, please? Thank you. Appreciate it. We have a special guest today. This is Bradley. Y'all say hey to Bradley. Bradley is one of our volunteers, and I just need you to know that Bradley is a super solid volunteer to the point that I asked him this morning if he would help me just hold things, and he was like, what am I doing? And I just told him. So, y'all see what Bradley's holding? What is this? It's water. Do we have any other guesses? Oil? That's pretty good. This is actually water and vegetable oil. Those of you who are sciencey, do not ruin this, okay? So today we're going to do a science experiment. We have been talking about fruits of the Spirit, and fruits of the Spirit can be so confusing. Do you know what they mean? What does a fruit of the Spirit mean? We've been talking about it for like 30 years, it feels like. A fruit of the Spirit is love. Do you know another one? God. That's a great answer. Caring, love. It can be whatever we want. But here's what it means, okay? You ready? A fruit, okay, when we're talking about fruit of the Spirit, it means that we love God. We know that God lives inside of us. Even if we're not sure about God, even if we're not sure what's going on, we know that love is really important. Do you agree with that? And so how we show other people that we love is called a fruit. Because you know how like a fruit grows on a tree and you can see it? It's like that. So can people see that you love them? So today we're talking about a fruit that is kind of confusing, and it's called faithfulness. And it can be a lot. So here's what I'm going to say faithfulness is. Okay, you ready? Faithfulness is knowing, like asking all the big questions, okay? Which is a lot of why questions. Like, why does this happen? Why does this happen? And knowing that the answer to all of this is that we have to be involved in making the world a more loving place, okay? So to me, faithfulness is taking all the big questions out here, all the big things going on in the world, and saying we're going to do something about it and make the world a more loving place. Now, here's the cool experiment we're going to do. You ready? Bradley, open the lid. Okay, so Bradley's going to, I don't know what color he picked. He picked green. So Bradley's going to put some green, just a couple drops in there, and it's going to spread out a little bit. You see it? Did it spread out? No, what are they doing? They're falling to the bottom. Are they doing anything? They're kind of spreading out, but is it exciting? We do not agree. It could be way more exciting. So I want you to think about this. Like when we know about God, we know about church, we know about Jesus, when we know about love and all of those things, when we ask big questions, sometimes I think it can look like this, like we do things, but we're just kind of there. Now, here's the cool thing that happens. Bradley's going to put something else in there, and it's going to go. Just watch. What's it going to do? Oh no. What do you see happening? What's happening? We see bubbles, right? Do you see anything else happening? Oh, we got excited for a moment. It's going up, you're right. Is it mixing up at all? A little bit. Yeah. At the bottom? Okay. Bradley, you can put way more in there, sir. Okay, so here's what I want you to remember. Do you see how it was down here and now some of them are going up here and they're moving around? Every single time that you do something that's super loving, okay, when you're brave, like coming to the front, even though there's a ton of adults behind you who are just watching everything that's going on, when you're really nice to people at school, when you help pick up things, when you do all these things that show God's love and that God loves everyone, to me, our faith isn't just at the bottom sitting there asking questions, but it's active. That's what that means. To me, faithfulness means your faith does something with it over and over and over again. Now, here's the best part. It's not the same thing every single time, and your faith doesn't have to look like my faith, and your faith doesn't have to look like your parents' faith or any other adult's faith. And guess what? It's always changing. Can we remember that? That our faith is always changing, and it's always trying to do something good in the world. Can you remember that? Awesome. Guess what? It is time to go back with our volunteers. First, clap for Bradley because he did a great job. So if you are 5th grade and under, you will go to this room. So if y'all will line up with Cameron and go to your classrooms. If you are 6th grade and up, you will go to student ministry when the sign comes up on the thing, which will be in a moment, and you'll go on that side. That's all I have. Bye.
Hello, welcome to GracePointe's 20th. First, I want to give a big shout out to our online community. You are just as much a part of this as all of us here in the room. Well, my name is Emily Wire, and I am the GP Director of Communications and Operations. And I just have a couple of announcements for you. First of all, if you are new here, scan this QR code. It's going to be where you sign up for our newsletter and where you get information about everything I'm about to talk about. We have 2 current book studies going on. One is led by Ricky Brady, and it is on Josh's book, Bible Stories for Grown-Ups. The other one is led by Tiffany Dowdy on Outside the Lines, How Embracing Queerness Will Transform Your Faith by Reverend Mihi Kim Court. And it's not too late to join. Both of those studies just started this past week, so you can still sign up. Don't forget that we have a community potluck right after this gathering. We're going to have more specific instructions on how we're doing that transition right after this ends. We are doing a new community event next month. It is going to be Sunday, October 29th. Our next community social is going to be a fall festival / trunk or treat. So we're going to have a normal 9 a.m. gathering, and then at 11 a.m. we're going to have this fall festival. We're going to have games and food, something for everyone. So if you want to participate in that, we'll be sharing details and a sign up for that in the near future. GracePointe's goal is to create a safe, affirming, and transformative community. To those of you who already financially support us, thank you so much. And you can do so in multiple ways. Text any dollar amount to 84321. Go to gracepointe.net/give. Scan the QR code and Venmo us at GracePointeTN. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. We would love to invite our beautiful friends up. We're going to do a song. So I had an idea of bringing some of the familiar faces who have led the music for GracePointe over the years. So some of you newer people may not know these gorgeous creatures, but this is Shelly Keene. Some of you know and love her. And Matt Hodges is with us today as well. And so we're all going to do a song that Matt wrote that is very dear to the community of GracePointe during his time, and it's called I'm Remembering. So we're going to sing that.
Intricate heart.
and I'm reminded, may I not forget. I see evidence of great love all around, and my part in this story I'm remembering. I see evidence of grace, it's flowing through my veins. I'm wrapped in the divine, I'm remembering, I'm remembering. Oh, what a beautiful world. Oh, what an intricate heart I've been given. May I not forget. With every breath in my lungs, I feel a part of it all, and I'm reminded, may I not forget. Will you sing along with us? I see evidence of great love all around, and my part in this story I'm remembering. I see evidence of grace, it's flowing through my veins. I'm wrapped in the divine, I'm remembering, I'm remembering. I hear the echo ringing, atoms and angels singing. There's so much more than we can see. I'm remembering the ancient stories told us. The plan unfolds before us. Love's always been, will always be. I'm remembering. I hear the echo ringing, atoms and angels singing. There's so much more than we can see. I'm remembering the ancient stories told us. The plan unfolds before us. Love's always been, will always be. I see evidence of great love all around, and my part in this story I'm remembering. I see evidence of grace, it's flowing through my veins. I'm wrapped in the divine, I'm remembering, I'm remembering, I'm remembering, I'm remembering.
Hey family, I'm Craig Ammon, and I've been a member of GracePointe since June 2015. We all have our own stories that brought us to GracePointe. Mine is relevant to my deep connection to our church from the very beginning, and so I'll share it. In June of 2014, my wife of 21 years asked me for a separation. I was devastated. I was a faithful husband, doting father, and I tried to do everything right and be the man that I was expected to be, but I failed. For a lot of reasons, I couldn't blame her, so I moved out. Alcohol had always been a problem for me, And in the shame and the heartbreak of the separation, it only got worse. In January of 2015, I was desperate to get sober. And as a last resort, I let go of a 40-year-old secret I thought I would take to my grave. I came out as gay to my wife and kids and the rest of the world in hopes of getting sober. In the immediate aftermath, of course, with all the pain, things just got worse, and I just hit rock bottom. By the grace of God, that addiction was lifted from me on May 21st, 2015. I have no doubt in my mind that was a miracle. The very next day at my second AA meeting, as I told my newcomer story, a guy in a t-shirt saying straight but not narrow eyed me down and made a beeline for me at the end of the meeting, introduced himself and became my sponsor. The next week over coffee, he invited me to join him and his family at GracePointe. I remembered the name from the news stories and felt it was a connection. Y'all know it was a God thing. So I attended the next Sunday, and from the very beginning, I loved it. But I wasn't thinking of scripture or the afterlife or progressive Christianity those first few months. All I did was heal. I needed to come into that space, this space, God's house, with people of faith, this flawed and broken person, and be just not accepted and loved, but celebrated for who I am, this actual person, me. We all deserve that. And Sunday after Sunday, I would cry out the regret and the heartbreak and the pain, and I would breathe in the love and the acceptance and the message of GracePointe, and I would walk out each Sunday renewed. And over time, I started to believe the message coming from the sermons, from Stan and Melissa, and now our beloved Josh, and from pastors in our midst like Lee and Murphy and others. I am and always have been a beloved child of God. The people who have told me differently are wrong. Our pastor and other progressive Christian pastors, they know the Bible. They're following Jesus. They know the context and they know the truth. Each and every one of us is beloved by God. Each and every one of us is always in communion with God. And everyone deserves to hear that message. And so with no hell to fear, why go to church, Josh asks sometimes. We could be out here in the mountains instead. There are two very important reasons why I love GracePointe and why I keep coming back. First is I love the reminders. After 40 years of hearing that I was an abomination, I love hearing every Sunday that I am not. I am a beloved child of God. It is wonderful. And so that's for me. But more importantly, there are the millions and millions of souls who, for whatever reason, have been told that they're unacceptable to God, that they love the wrong person, that they do not measure up. And certainly there are millions who fear hell. Every one of us deserves to walk through this life knowing that from the beginning, we always have been beloved by God. And when more and more people hear that message, when the voice of GracePointe grows louder, combating the message of the people carrying the Bible and claiming to represent Christ, telling us that we don't measure up, that message needs to get louder and louder. And when we do, when everyone knows that from the beginning we are so loved, we will bring about the human flourishing that Jesus Christ called us to do. And I'm here for it. GracePointe, happy birthday. I love you so much.
They have to stop putting me on after stuff like that. That is... Thank those of you, Andy, Craig, Carol, thank you all for your videos so much. If you'd ever be interested in doing something like that to express what this community means to you, reach out and let me know. We'd love to have you do that as well. Happy birthday, GracePointe. Yeah. before I invite Stan up, we're going to take just a moment here at the beginning to just acknowledge that in the lifespan of a community, 20 years for us at GracePointe now, there have been people who were part of this journey with us. There have been people who were a big part of this journey with us who have passed on, and they're no longer with us in the way they used to be. And so we just want to begin today by acknowledging their life and the gift that they have been to this community. So we'll just have a brief moment of silence, and then I'll offer a prayer, and then we'll get started. God, as we celebrate today, 20 years of life as a community, as we talk about where we've been and where we are and our hopes for the future, we just pause to acknowledge those who are no longer with us, whose lives were a gift to the world and to our community specifically. And so today we remember them, we grieve their absence, and we also celebrate their lives and the impact that they made on this community. GracePointe would not be who it is without them. And so today, we miss them, we grieve them, and we are so grateful for them. We offer this in Jesus' name. Everybody said, amen. Everybody, our founding pastor, Stan Mitchell.
That was dicey. It could have gone a lot of different ways.
It's always a risk. The introduction is always a risk. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for putting us in your. Yeah. 20 years. You founded this church when you were 12.
No.
Most people don't realize.
18.
18. Okay. Yeah, just getting started. Could you just talk a little bit about what it feels like to be in this space with these folks, with our folks online, 20 years? Like, that's a big deal. It's an accomplishment. It's a gift. It's beautiful. What is it like to be here?
I mean, it's obviously gratifying to look and to see something that you poured your heart and life into, and to think that it's still not just surviving, but you guys are flourishing. I mean, obviously, look at this. It's wonderful. So it's a wonderful feeling. I remember when we started GracePointe. I mean, this is the buckle of the Bible belt, the stem of the buckle of the Bible belt. I remember some of my friends at Lifeway, actually, had done a lot of research on new churches in the 65 Williamson County corridor. And the shelf life of new churches, they told us at that time, past 5 years was somewhere between like 10 to 12%, and 10 years and full viability was in the 3 to 5% range. So just on those grounds, not even getting into, kind of the uniqueness of what we were trying to do, it's incredibly gratifying, and I couldn't be more grateful. I've been pastor emeritus for 4 years and still maintained that everything I do is an extension of GracePointe. I mean, all of the work that I do. For those that don't know, I just do GracePointe out and amongst the folk. There are so many people in small towns in Delaware and Nevada and North Dakota that don't have a church like this within hundreds of miles of them. And predominantly, the folk that I work with are Southern Baptist Church of Christ, Nazarene, Church of the Brethren, Missionary Alliance, just conservative evangelical people whose faith comes not crumbling, but to a point of real intersection around gender, sexuality. Most of the time, it's a child of theirs is battling not wanting to live because of what they're learning in Sunday school. And so I just take GracePointe to them. On the weekends, I'm at our churches. Josh has asked me now to start filling in for him sometime when he's gone. So it's incredibly gratifying just to have stayed a part and to extend this work. I do want to say from the get-go, and Craig, what a wonderful, you just synopsized everything that we tried to do, couldn't even put to words in the beginning. But I wanted to say we do have one charter member here today, all the way back to May of 2003, when 12 people gathered in the living room and started the dream of all this, and that is the other Stan Mitchell that goes by Stan Mitchell Jr. right back here. Wave, Stan. He was 5 years old, and he reminds me every day. He's an incredible 25-year-old human being, but he reminds me every day of why we did this. Because I grew up amongst wonderful people who thought horrible things about God and ourselves. And the trauma from that, I will forever be getting over. I will never be completely over all of that. Stan Jr. grew up in GracePointe in a church with a wide-hearted perspective of Jesus and Christianity. And when I talk about my upbringing and the wounds that are still there and the fears that I have and all of those disturbances of soul that are embedded in me, it's lovely to see him with compassion look at me and not be able to identify. And I'm just thankful we did that. And you can say amen to that, can't you, son? Amen. Yeah.
You know, speaking of that, just hearing what our kids learned just over there a minute ago, that their faith is their own and it doesn't have to be their parents or anybody else's, that it's about question. I mean, what a gift to not, we say often, our kids here aren't going to deconstruct in the way that so many of us are and have, and thank God, because it's a process. Before we keep going, we're acknowledging folks who have been around for a minute. Is anybody else here with us right now that has been present for all 20 years? All right. Jeff. Good to see you, Jeff. What about, let's just say 10 years. Anybody been around 10 years, GracePointe? All right. I see those hands.
No, this is giving me triggers back to the day when remember the Mother's Day where it's
I was just talking about that. We should be giving out flowers.
It always got odd. It was like when it was like the youngest.
The Holy Ghost broke out over there. I'm not exactly sure.
You didn't get enough attention, Cassie, when you were up here singing. But you remember the whole awkward thing of the youngest mother? That always got a little bit dicey. Northeast Arkansas, so anyway.
What about 8 years? Anybody been around 8 years? Yeah. And what about 5 years? That's almost me. I'm so close to 5 years, almost me. Oh, it's so good to see all of you, those of you who we haven't seen in a minute, those of you who are it's so beautiful. Stan, so you're sitting here 20 years in. Talk about a little bit about the early sort of impulse, because one of my favorite, when I got the job here, you and I went for coffee, and you were just kind of downloading a little bit of GracePointe history, and you talked about how GracePointe was created to be a laboratory. Can you just talk about that early impulse? Because we still reference that all the time. GracePointe's a laboratory. It's a place where we're hypothesizing, testing hypotheses, all that sort of thing. Can you talk about that impulse?
Yeah, GracePointe started with a very definitive purpose, and it's a purpose that's borne out, and we played it out, but the laboratory aspect is very real because we didn't know exactly how it was going to turn out. And it's turned out in ways like any good laboratory that has surprised us, shocked us, saddened us, but you continue to learn and you keep moving forward. The one thing that I want to say that we did know in the beginning of GracePointe 20 years ago, those that gathered together, and we knew it at different levels, we knew that we were a part of a continually progressing Christian tradition. We knew that Christianity had a long history of being progressive in nature. You know, when we talk about traditional versus progressive Christianity, I get that, but I do think that that's a little bit misguided because we personally believed in the beginning that the tradition of Christianity is inherently progressive.
Yep.
Christianity was born with a progressive bent and slope. And so everything from the Protestant Reformation to the Wesleyan Renewal to the Pentecostal Revival to the Anabaptist movement, all of these things indicate that Christianity's always progressing. We knew a bunch of evangelicals. It was a group of people from Southern Baptist, Nazarene, Church of Christ, Assembly of God, conservative evangelical backgrounds. We knew that something was afoot, and we knew that we were supposed to be a part of it. It was, in retrospect, I don't want to bore you with the details, but it was in retrospect, and I think this is important, it was another iteration of a movement that had been in earnest working hard for about the last 200 years, kind of post-Enlightenment. The Renaissance, the European Renaissance, the Enlightenment gave us more than a scientific and industrial revolution. It really did give us a religio-spiritual revolution.
Yep.
because the same microscopes and telescopes and good critical lenses that we were using on botany and astronomy and economics, there were a lot of good religious people who said those same critical lenses can apply to our religion and our spirituality. And when Christians really began in earnest to do that, the latter part of the 18th century, the beginning of the 19th century, it birthed some movements pretty immediately. The first really was the Unitarian Universalist movement. It was born out of Christianity. It became pretty immediately, understandably, kind of Jesus allergic because there was so much that it was trying. But the principles of Unitarian Universalism, when you read the big 6 or 7, it's Christianity at its heart. It's Jesus at its heart.
Yeah,
it may not be Christianity. The good Unitarians, those 7 principles are the spirituality of Jesus, not the religion about Jesus.
Yep.
Big difference. And I think the Unitarians looked and said, well, Christianity hasn't been using this stuff, so somebody should. And so
just find
they
it lying
ripped us
around.
off. That mainline liberalism, Episcopals, Presbyterians, Methodists, Lutherans, that movement was born. The Unity movement, who was very Jesus sentimental. The religious science movement, same principles, very Jesus allergic. Those movements were all attempts to take Jesus seriously without the narrow-minded and misguided angst about the afterlife. Mm-hmm. And the radical exclusivism that arrogantly said, well, we're the only ones, which is not a religious phenomena. It is a evolutionary phenomenon. It's a part of survival. It's a part of our animalistic instincts to survive, to other people, to turn neighbors into competitors and to turn family into enemies, because there's this sense of scarcity. And the same scarcity that we as primates and animals felt about food and air and water, we begin to feel about God and the acreage of the afterlife. And so much of Christianity's first 1,800 years, true progressives don't look at Christianity and say, well, we've got it right now and we've been wrong. The real heart of progressive Christianity is, have we read this story of Jesus? Have we read this scripture most faithfully today? The arrogant, patronizing way of acting like everything's been stupid and now we're smart is its own form of liberal Phariseeism and fundamentalism. And it may emphasize wideness of mind, but it's not wideness of heart. And so there was just a group of us that knew, and you remember this, a lot of you can resonate with this, in the late 80s when the Southern Baptists split and a group of moderates really lost that franchise. Some thinkers came out of that camp, the Frank Violas, the Tony Campolos, the Philip Yancey's. And these were people who were speaking more wide-hearted, sensible things about Jesus and the Bible, God, salvation, the afterlife. They were saying them, and they weren't saying something new. This stuff had been talked about for 200 years amongst the mainline Unitarians, but they were saying them in evangelical settings. And for us, it didn't matter that these thoughts had been around for 200 years. It was the first for us.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's why you got to be very careful in places like this not to become arrogant in your post-deconstruction. Because I hear a lot of people in our circle say, I'm so tired of hearing about deconstruction. Well, lucky you, because you've had the chance to go through it and get to the other side of it. The reality is deconstruction is not an epoch of time or located in a social location. It's not something that is a religious movement that a group of people went through. It's something that happens in the soul of every human, and every human gets to do that kind of psychological, intellectual, spiritual weaning. And so we have to be compassionate. What an awful thing to get to the other side of your own harrowing journey in that, and then to act like, well, it's time to move on. There needs to be a space for people always. The harvest field in the Bible Belt is huge for that group of people. Well, we were that group, and long story short, Campolo and Yancey, they were saying things that just piqued our interest, and then a guy named Brian McLaren came along in the late 90s, and he said things so well in our language that it didn't off-put us and scare us so horribly that we couldn't follow. And McLaren gave rise in the early 2000s to a group of guys like me who said, I'm personally going through deconstruction from growing up as a United Pentecostal. I was a little boy that I couldn't even play Little League sports because it was considered a worldly amusement. In fourth grade, I had a panic attack at school because my hair was touching my ears and I was afraid the rapture might take place. And with long hair, I wouldn't make it. That kind of trauma, we knew what we had gone through, and a group of us who were reading McLaren and Campolo, we said, if this stuff is really going to work, it needs to happen in an ecclesial setting. It needs to happen in a local church. And not very far down the road ourselves, we just decided to start. And GracePointe literally started with the trappings and the stylisms of an evangelical church so that it would be comfortable for all of us. It started with those kind of sensibilities and trappings. It did not start as a typical evangelical church with a doctrinal statement of 12 points. It literally, our whole point was we are going to be a place for people to be able to fall apart in their spirituality, their faith. Questions and struggle and deconstruction are not going to be counted as heresy or apostasy or backsliding. They're going to be upheld as a normal and natural part of Christian spiritual maturation. We started that, for those that are new, we did that from 2003 to 2011. And we grew from 12 people, Stan Jr. and me and 10 others. We grew to about 2,500 to 3,000 members. We built a 22-acre campus in Franklin, on Franklin Road, spent $8 million. We were still evangelical in a lot of ways. We built this big thing, but we grew. We had 700, 800, sometimes 1,000 people on Sunday. We were known in the community as the progressives, so we weren't. Other evangelicals were scared of us. But it was a growing, thriving community. Sunday morning, we were not Sunday morning centric, though that's where most people showed up. The real strength of our church was full of book clubs reading Richard Rohr and Brian McLaren and Madeline LaEngle. And it was just a bunch of Baptist and Church of God and Church of Christ sitting around saying, okay, I'm not alone in this. I'm not crazy. And we did that, and it was great. Honest to God, I'm not kidding you, and I'm not remembering fondly. It's the truth. That first 9 years, I don't remember one argument amongst staff, amongst board, amongst congregation. It was halcyonic. It was too good to be true, literally, because it was a laboratory, and I'll tell you where the laboratory faced its first contamination, or we just realized the experiment did have fissures and flaws. Not failures, but that's part of experimenting. The Marriage Amendment Act came out. Well, let me tell you about GracePointe for the first 9 years. We were a deconstruction zone, and when somebody would walk up to me as the lead pastor and say, hey, how does GracePointe feel about substitutionary penal atonement? Or what's GracePointe's position on abortion? I literally would honestly, it's not political shtick, I meant this. It was our zeitgeist. It was our MO. I would say to them, I don't know, you'll have to ask them. Because for us, GracePointe wasn't a 501c3 with a 12-point doctrinal statement that 2,800 people agreed with. It was a place to fall apart at the feet of Jesus and even let go of him if you needed to, and it would be okay. And it was wonderful, and it worked. But when the Marriage Amendment Act came out, honestly, our church faced a crisis of integrity, and I faced a crisis of personal integrity as a pastor. Because as much as I had loved curating that deconstruction zone, as you might imagine, GracePointe was filled, Kenny and Butch, with queer people. And it wasn't because we were fully affirming, it was because we weren't fully condemning. And we literally were kind of a Jim Crow segregated South after chattel slavery. Forgive the appropriation, but that's what it felt like. It was like in the New Testament, the Syrophoenician woman who came to Jesus. and she wanted her child healed. And Jesus stated the religious worldview of the time. He said, well, I can't do anything for you because we don't give bread to the dogs. Jesus was really stating how awful religion had gotten at that point, even the religion he himself was a part of. It's not about Judaism or Christianity, it's just what we can do as humans. And the woman looked at Jesus and she said, but my child and I are starving. I don't expect a place at the table, but if you will let us eat the crumbs that fall around your feet, it'll keep my child from starving, and I'll swallow my pride to keep my kid alive. And Jesus couldn't take it. He turned around to his disciples and said, that's it. That's actually what we need to do. And if we don't do that, we need to close the whole thing down. And queer people in 2011 at GracePointe were Syrophoenician. They didn't sit at the table with us, but they at least didn't starve. And it was the best deal they could get in the Cool Springs corridor in Williamson County in the conservative South. And they tolerated it. And they brought their thirst, and they drank from water fountains with signs over them. But 2011, the water from those water fountains, even at GracePointe, began to taste like poison. And I knew that serving that community, I was on the other side of deconstruction. I had constructed a very progressive, wide-hearted, liberal Christian faith that was pleasing and peaceful to me. I was still serving a community that was in all types of different places. But the long story short is, I knew when Mary and Jody came to me and said, you're our pastor, would you marry us, that I could not say no. So now all of a sudden we had a very practical theological issue that I knew we could not continue genuinely in the place where we were and look at our queer community and say, no, we will not marry you, we will not ordain you, and you can't be elders here. I knew. So when I knew that we were going to have to state ourselves, and you had to fire me, but I've got to marry these people. I've got to ordain them. Well, GracePointe had 3 groups at that time. This was what the laboratory had created. We had 3 groups. We had a definitively progressive Christian group who were past all of that, and they were like, well, sure. I've always been a hands-on pastor. I went through our 2,800 people on the list. I knew 2,500 of them, and I divided them into 3 categories. It was 1, 2, and 3. And the one group was definitively, it was like 31 to 35%. And then there was a group in the middle. They were the deconstructing folk that we had built the church for, the nail-biting, angsty people who were still scared to death. They weren't over here, but they weren't back here, and they didn't know what to do, but it was safe for them. And I knew as soon as I said, well, I'm going to perform same-sex marriages, there would be a group of those that it would advance their deconstruction, and there would be a group that would be like, oh, that's too much. And it would scare them. They were still talking about, was Adam and Eve literal and that kind of stuff, but not gender binaries. So that group was about a third. And then, y'all, here's the hard part. This is where the laboratory broke down. A third of our church were conservative, evangelical, Catholic Christians who didn't get what we were doing. And they were there because we were evangelical in style enough. And I knew they were there. And those conservatives, they were a third of our congregation, but they were about 75% of our giving, because that legalistic tithe still does better than liberal generosity. And we had a $52,000 a month building payment and a $1.9 million budget. And I was still evangelical in ethos. Not theology, but ethos. And it hit me. Oh my God, the reason they're here, Rachel, is because I am trying to trick them into saving them. I am building water wells for them, and then I'm going to trick them and convert them over to liberal Christianity. And it wasn't a group of people, it was our best friends. It was, those 3 groups were on the same board, in the same choir, in the same Sunday school classes. And the group in the middle was connected to both because they shared a border with the really conservative folk because they came from them. They shared a border with the progressive folk because they kind of felt like they were going there. But these two groups on the outside loved one another, but they were a million miles apart on some things that they could not either one compromise. And I had to go to the board and say the laboratory has now reached its first fail. We took 3 years, and we finally made the statement in 2015 of full affirmation and celebration of our queer siblings. We said from the get-go, we are not doing something wonderful. We are simply stopping doing something awful. No self-congratulations. We have not invited queer people to the table. We have finally joined them. They've been here all along.
That's right.
And we did that. We had to sell our campus. We lost a couple of thousand people. I went through a divorce. My family, my life, my emotions were wrecked. But a group of people held onto that laboratory, self-included, and we navigated as best we could and held it, the people are here, and held that laboratory together. And you came, and a new group was able to take. I'll tell you where we were. Paul said, "Be not weary in well-doing." Well, we were. There is a weariness that comes with wrongdoing, but there is a weariness that comes with well-doing.
That's right.
And we were weary, but we held on, Kathy. We held on, Sandy. We held on, and we laid this foundation. And for those that don't know, I think it's important for you to know that's kind of the foundation that's under all of this beauty now. So anyway.
And when the first sermon I gave at GracePointe was like fall of 2018. Like I had a memory pop up on Facebook of I'm going to preach at GracePointe. It was like the first time. And there were roughly 40 of them. Y'all laughing because you remember.
Saturday night.
You weren't laughing then, but you can now. And we would not be here in this space. GracePointe would not be where it is and who it is without those 40 people who just stubbornly, doggedly refused to let it go because they believed that those of us who weren't here yet, we needed GracePointe. And there were so many other people who aren't here yet now who needed GracePointe, and they had the vision and the courage and the conviction to stick by it. I think we should thank them. Would you join me? And not just because you gave me a job. That's a wonderful bonus. I remember first meeting Stan and GracePointe in 2014. I was pastoring a church in rural Kentucky, trying to do the same thing GracePointe was doing. It was a lot of fun in rural Kentucky. And we had reached out. I stalked Brian McLaren. Stan mentioned Brian McLaren. I stalked Brian and still do somewhat on the internet just to see where he's at. I mean, not in a creepy way, but like if he's near me, I want to go see Brian and hear Brian. And so I reached out, and Ron Miller, who was the one who reached back out to me and said, "Yeah, you can bring your group down Sunday night." And that's when we met for the very first time. And I'd been doing that work alone in isolation. And to step into GracePointe and to meet another pastor and to meet other people, it was such a gift because I suddenly wasn't alone trying to push this boulder up a hill.
There was a weariness and well-doing for you in a rural Kentucky town.
For sure.
I mean, sometime coaches of the year just have to get a fresh place and a fresh, and so it really was fortuitous that we met through all of that.
And just the gift that GracePointe gave me and the gift that you gave me at that point in time, just realizing we're not the only church doing this, we're not the only one struggling with this. And I fast forward to 2015. I had reached out to you because I remember this. I was off the next weekend, which was Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. And I'd said, "Hey, I'm off that Sunday. I'm going to come down to GracePointe." And you called me, and you were like, "Well, a thing I did today." We announced that we're fully affirming today. And so I got to be at GracePointe the week after that. And just the whole experience of it was such a gift. And I say all that to just bring it back around to what is your experience as a founding pastor of a community like this that has become important for other churches and other pastors who are trying, they can look out and see, like, we want to become an affirming community. We want to become a progressive community. We want to do that. Is it possible? When you look at GracePointe, what is that experience and that feeling like of knowing how much this community matters to people?
Yeah, there's no way I can convey from all of my travels and being out there how important this community is, not just to Nashville and Middle Tennessee. I want you to know no exaggeration. It is an understatement that, let's just focus on evangelicals, the largest part of American or really Protestantism writ large. There are hundreds of thousands and millions of evangelical people just like us who are towing the threshold of this kind of deconstruction, and they're scared and they don't know where to go. Along with that, there are tens of thousands of evangelical pastors who are thinking these thoughts and feeling pangs of conscience and knowing that they have to head this way. Our group, Brian left the pastorate, Tony and Philip never really pastored, Rob tried it and left the pastorate. Our group was the group that said we've got to do this in a local church setting. It just can't be abstractions in books. We have to, unless Christianity works in a local community, I don't know that it's going to go. And so we were trying it, but the fuel for us was the LGBTQ issue. Because we weren't trying, our primary thing was not to change people's minds about gay people. Our primary thing was to change people's minds about God and Jesus and themselves, about humanity in general and sexuality. When the same gender marriage amendment came along, we were like, okay, this gives us a perfect incarnational issue to flesh all of this out. But it's just one issue, and there's hundreds, but that was ours. Human sexuality is such an incendiary, inflammatory, sensitive issue that our group that tried that were literally cannon fodder. And our churches were cannon fodder. And our friends, those churches are all smaller or now defunct. There's a whole new wave now of post-evangelicals that are not starting the way we did on the LGBTQ issue. They got another issue given to them in their lap. We got ours in 2011. They got one in 2016. 2016, the election, MAGA, Donald Trump, nationalism, and that issue gave them the potential to go back to people towing the threshold of deconstruction in their setting and say, is this really who we are? That one is serving more effectively in terms of them being able to get over the hump. It's a little easier, that one. Now, you and I are both saying to all of them, but don't you act like you can go down the road on that and not do the LGBTQ. You cannot be successful enough at that if you don't. And they know that, and they're doing that. But this, I just want to say this. That movement, it is a part of a larger movement, and it is the ultimate maturation of Christianity. If Christianity does not mature beyond being a salvific religion about the afterlife into a wisdom tradition that emphasizes the here and now spirituality of Jesus, if Christianity doesn't move away from fear and angst about hell and if Christianity doesn't move away from radical exclusivism, if it doesn't grow up as a religion and be Jesus, it needs to die.
Yeah.
And there are times in my travels, I think I am either helping my religion mature, and GracePointe is either helping our religion mature, or we're doing palliative hospice care, helping something we dearly love go away and live its last breath. People say, are you talking about Christianity dying? It happened to its founder, and things turned out all right. Part of the Paschal cycle is death, and a Christianity that makes queer children not want to live. A Christianity that purports a Jesus that excludes Jews and Muslims and Hindus and humanists, that Christianity either needs to grow up or it needs to go away. GracePointe is a part of a movement that is saying hopefully, we actually have legitimate hope Christianity can grow up. And I'm telling you, thousands of pastors are looking toward this community, wanting it to make it, because most pastors from conservative backgrounds who begin deconstruction do that in their mid-30s, their late 40s. It takes a while to get there. The problem is they already have 3 kids, 1 in college, and a mortgage, and this gets wrapped up in their life, and they're scared to death. Now, do they need courage? Yeah, they need about 1/4 as much courage as the queer kids that's been coming to their church have to muster every morning to go.
That's right. That's right.
But I'm just telling you, with all that said, GracePointe doesn't need to survive. It needs to thrive, because this is the way of Christianity forward. And I mean that with all my heart. So you guys are incredibly important. I tell your story everywhere I go and say, it's possible. It's possible. So
The thing that gives me so much hope, and I think about the future of this community, regardless of who the lead pastor is, regardless of any of that, is, and I've said this to our community time and again, it is that throughout our history, even though GracePointe hasn't always been the church it is now, it's not always been on the progressive scale it is now, it's not always been affirming, but GracePointe has consistently over our history shown that when presented with better information, we make better choices. And because that is in the very DNA of who these folks are. And so when people ask me, with all the shifts in culture, all that, well, are you optimistic about, the church? I'm optimistic about this church. Yeah. Because I see in this church so much of the beauty that I want to be a part of creating in the world. And it's because of y'all make that happen. Nobody would care what we were saying if there weren't a community of people who were actually embodying it and living it out beautifully in the world. So before we wrap up, I just want to say, and because I think it's important, to be said, I have friends who have followed founding pastors in churches. Right? They took a job and they followed a founding pastor, and it has gone for some of them really, really poorly. Really poorly. And I just need to say about our founding pastor that he has been a gift to work alongside, a gift to work with. He has been nothing but supportive. He deeply loves this community and longs for it to thrive. And so when I'm with people telling horror stories, I'm like, I got none. Because, he's going to preach next week. So he's going to be around. And I'm so grateful. Can we thank Stan? Everybody? What a gift y'all are. What a gift. We're going to invite our band to come on back up. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for making this the community that the world desperately needs.
I don't want to have feet of stone. I don't want to have feet of stone. I want to follow this river of life where it will have me go. I don't want to have feet of stone. I don't want to have a dagger tongue. I don't want to have a dagger tongue. I don't want my words to be a weapon, but a healing balm. I don't want to have a dagger tongue. I don't want to have a heavy mind. I don't want to have a heavy mind. I don't want to hold these thoughts that are chains of iron. I don't want to have a heavy mind. I wanna have eyes of love. I wanna have eyes of love. Count the beggar man's life precious as my own. Offer my back for my brother's load. I wanna have eyes of love. I wanna have eyes of love.
Yes. So beautiful. Thank you all for being with us today. Can we thank Shelly and Matt and Cassie? Beautiful Cassie back. Thank you. Yeah. Got some instructions for you, and then we will be released. So we're going to need about 30 minutes to transition this space into the potluck. We're going to eat because we're all hungry. So don't worry about taking the chairs. We've got right up here, if you want to follow out, we've got lemonade tea. It's just going to be a kind of refreshment reception for about 30 minutes, and then we'll flip this and be here in fellowship. Sound good? Awesome. Let's stand. Let's end with this. We love you being here. Thank you so much. Let's sing it. Oh, God is with you. God is with me. God is on our side. God is on our side. Let's sing. God is with you. God is with you. God is with me. Yeah. God is on our side. Come on, God is with you. God is with you. Oh, God is with me. God is on our side. God is on our side. Sing, God is with you. God is with you. God is with me. God is with me. Oh, yeah. God is on our side. Oh, God is with us. God is for us. God is on our side. And all who will hear join the chorus. God is on our side. Everything's gonna be alright. God is on our side. Thank y'all for being with us today. We love you, GracePointe. We'll be back in a second. Have a good one. See ya.